pulls up behind, right next to me.
Okay, good evening. Good evening, everybody. Let's call to order the City Council meeting for the City of Pacifica for March 24th. And the first order is roll call.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Here.
Councilmember Stone.
Here.
Councilmember Degree.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Irvin.
Here.
Mayor Neihardt.
Present. And a salute to the flag this evening will be led by, we've got feedback.
Please join me in saluting our flag.
Yes, it's by council. No, I was just getting the feedback stopped. Hang on, before we do that, where's the feedback?
The ice cream man. Oh, he's gone.
Maybe it was
No,
a
it's
cell
gone
phone.
now. Okay, whatever it was,
Nice.
please join us in the salute to the flag. Councilmember Stone.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And before we do the consent calendar, Councilmember Stone asked to give some feedback today, so I just thought I'd let him do that.
Thank you, Mayor Neihardt. I just wanted to say before we start the meeting, I did Meals on Wheels last week, and I heard from a couple different people that they couldn't hear us at the meeting. So I just wanted to ask council members, staff, the public, to try to speak into the microphone, because there's a lot of, I've heard a number of feedback, or people giving feedback that they can't actually hear us. So I know in the course of a meeting, if we can be a little bit more conscious and really speak into the microphone, it'll help the people watching at home. Thank you.
Speaking of which, on the consent calendar, oh, by the way, any report from closed session?
No reportable action.
Okay, thank you. And speak into that microphone. You too.
No reportable action.
Thank you. With that said, when we get to the consent calendar, you can also speak on any item on the consent calendar if you want to ask us to pull it. So this is your opportunity to do that if there's any particular item there. I have no cards, so I'm going to assume that there isn't and bring it back to council. Okay, Council Member or Mayor Pro Tem Irvin.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
And Councilmember Stone?
Second?
Okay. Did you want to say something about something?
Yeah, I wanted to pull one item off the consent agenda, and that's item number 5, a resolution approving the condominium map.
Okay, does that need to be done before the motions were made? Or do I need to ask them to amend it?
It needs to be pulled from the agenda. It doesn't have to be addressed until after you vote on the consent.
Correct, but we have a motion and a second already on the table, so I'm
So that would,
assuming that,
you need to withdraw that motion in a second because you're
okay.
asking
I withdraw that motion, and then I'll make another motion.
Wait, does the second,
Sorry.
yeah,
Yes.
okay. Now, go ahead.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda without item 5 being
Okay.
pulled.
And I'll second that.
And you'll second, thank you. Okay, and please vote. So item 5 goes at the end, is what we've traditionally done. Oh, it's 5-0. Sorry, a week's vacation and I'm just worthless up here. So it goes usually at the end. We've talked about doing that differently because people sometimes come for specific issues, but
You can place it wherever you want since there's no protocol. I mean, there may be past
Or
practice.
discretion.
then I say we do it now. Okay. Is the council okay with that?
I am.
All right, so let's do item 5 right now since we're in the consent. And we will need a staff report. This is about the adoption of a resolution approving the condominium map for the Summit at Skyline Drive. This is 435 Gateway, a proposed action. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. My name is Raymond Donginis with the City Pacifica Engineering Division, and with me tonight is Catherine Farbstein with the Planning Department. This report represents a request for the approval of a condominium map that will convert 170 apartment units at the Summit at Skyline and Marymount Gateway Apartments into condominiums. The subject site is comprised of 7 lots and located on the east side of Gateway Drive. Built in the 1970s, Summit at Skyline Complex is located at the northern portion of a lot consisting of 98 apartment units, and while the Marymount Gateway Apartment consists of 72 units. The property is improved with 16 two-story multi-family residential buildings with addresses from 405 to 467 Gateway Drive. As included in it was the approval, there is 26 units that would be offered the below market rate to tenants. Any affordable units not sold to the tenants will be offered for sale as affordable housing to qualified buyers. On December 15, 2008, the Planning Commission voted 6-0 and found that the project is exempt from California Environmental Quality Act and approved the conversion of the condominiums. The condominium map is attached, has now been prepared in accordance with the tentative condominium map and the Subdivision Map Act. The condominium map is in general conformance with the tentative condominium map. CSG consultants, under the direction of staff, reviewed the condominium map for compliance with the Subdivision Map Act. The condominium map has therefore been filed for City Council approval, and pursuant to Pacifica Municipal Code, staff recommends approval of the condominium map.
Thank you. Questions from council? Councilmember O'Neill.
I just had a couple questions I wanted to know is, on the 26 units that are affordable housing, is there a deed restriction so that they will remain affordable housing if this buyer sells them?
That's correct. Below market rate units will remain. There's actually the inclusionary zoning compliance agreement that was created and is in the process of being signed that will ensure that those 26 units remain as below market rate units for 45 years.
Okay, and then so there's some provision that people buying it will get some equity, but some sort of formula, right?
That's correct, right?
Okay. My second question is, I know the affordable units are first offered to the tenants, but do tenants also get the right, if those 26 are already taken, do other tenants get the right of first refusal so that they don't have to move if they wanted to buy one of them?
The tenants have the first right of refusal for the to purchase a condominium that they're occupying, and this goes back to the tenants back in 2008. I'm not clear on how many tenants remain at this point. If I understand your question correctly, so if the tenants that are there now and have the right of first refusal, if there's more than the 26 units, no, there's only 26 units that will be provided as below market rate.
No, my question is that so there's 26 tenants that have right to buy there under affordable housing, but do the other units, do the tenants that are not affordable, do the tenants have right to buy into them at market price?
That's correct.
They do. Correct. So the tenants do have.
That's correct. From going back from, I don't know the exact date, but say it's 2008, however many tenants, and I'm guessing they're around 50 now, would have that right of first refusal. That's correct.
So that they don't have to move.
That's correct.
If they buy the place.
If they purchase their units. Some of those tenants may meet their qualifications to be below market rate, and then in that case they would be offered one of the 26
right,
or below market rate units.
But this is a side question. Okay. So is it only the tenants that were there in 2008, or is it current tenants?
It's the original tenants that were there when they started this process. which goes back to 2008.
So even if they've moved out, they still can qualify for the affordable housing?
That's correct.
Oh. Thank you.
Sure.
For the public, we've been handed a document up here that we had not previously seen, nor was it part of the record. I want to ask the city attorney for your opinion on this. What do we do with this?
Huge. Well,
It's a huge document.
I am quickly reviewing it. I'm assuming that staff has not had the opportunity to review this material. I don't see on the face of this letter that there's anything that relates to the council's decision
For
on
the
whether or
map.
not to approve the final map. The conditions for approving the final map are simply, is it consistent with the conditions of approval applied to the tentative map? I don't believe this letter addresses that, so I don't know if staff has had an opportunity to.
I haven't had an opportunity to see that document.
I am kind of loath to respond to this in the middle of a meeting just handed over by,
Staff report.
I need advice from council on this about how to proceed, so.
Well, my advice at this point is to proceed. I do not see anything in this letter that
All right, let me know.
affects the legal ability of the council to approve the final condominium map, when the only requirements are, does it comply with the tentative? And as Mr. Donganese has said, in his estimation, and also the planning department's estimation, the final map does comply with the tentative map.
And we're not voting on conversion issues, not conversion.
Oh, that-
They have the right to convert.
That action was already taken back in 2008.
Yeah, okay. Councilmember Degree, questions?
So that helps me clarify my questions, because I did ask some questions of staff prior. So we're really not dealing, because I was concerned that the affordable housing, because when I first read it, it didn't sound how clear about how far it was going, but it is the usual 45, and that the tenants, my other question was, were they going to be helped? So we aren't even discussing that at this point. We're just merely doing the map. And from questions I've asked of staff, there's been no substantial, means really no substantial changes. Okay, so you just clarified that. All right, thank you. So I know my other question. So, Michelle, this means that maybe something in here could still be brought back, or is that already, that's already a closed issue from 2008?
Yes, it appears to me that the issues that are being raised in this letter relate to the tenants' rights under our tenant protection ordinance that is not related to this final condominium map.
Right, but just for a person in concern, that inclusionary is still steadfast for whatever, but not necessarily would have to be brand new for this, and it's not, from a cursory look, is what I'm gathering.
Nothing,
Okay, but if it was, if you found something, it could be brought back, correct? But it doesn't look like there's
well,
going to be
not
anything.
related to the final condominium map. If you
Right.
approve that
Has
tonight,
nothing
then
to
that's
do
going
with
to
the
be
map.
concluded. But other issues related to other ordinances of the city certainly can be addressed in a different forum.
Okay, so I think the questions I've asked
Okay, these are
secure
just,
that.
yeah, these are just questions right now. I do have a card on this. Do we have, Councilmember O'Neill, do you have a
I was just
question?
going to make a resolution. I didn't know you had a card.
No, I have a card on this. I need to, it's an item. So I'm going to open this up to the public, if there's no more questions from council. Okay, Jeff McBride, and that's the only card I have on it. And I take it. Shoot. And you have 3 minutes. There's a little light. Okay.
Thank you. My name's Jeff McBride, and I represent some of the tenants in the apartments that are proposed to be converted into condominiums. I just wanted to raise their current concerns about, as the condominium conversion process has been going forward, that there hasn't been adequate concerns about their protections of raising the rent and move-out expenses and things like that. And they just wanted to have that raised at this meeting. And it seems that with those concerns having been raised and that they're not particularly germane to what the council is talking about right now, and that there's an opportunity to raise these issues later, that's just really all what I wanted to say about that.
Okay. All right, thank you. And you're the person that provided us with all this info. I'm not engaging you, I'm just saying that for the council. Okay. Just as a point of order, I hate getting a packet like this up here when we're making a decision. But you're assured that this has nothing to do with the map?
I don't believe the council's decision as to whether or not to approve this condominium map is related to this letter that we just received from the Hushman Law Group.
Or any of the attached exhibits?
Yeah, I believe they're all related to the content of
Tenant
the letter.
rights and those sorts of things, and,
Great, if
okay,
you want to look at it.
all right. Councilmember Stone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I appreciate you focusing us on the actual agenda item here, because this is just about the map, which is very, very straightforward, and I know there might be other issues that relate to this property, but none of which are in front of us tonight. So I'm totally happy with approval, but I would like to hear from Councilmember O'Neill if he has any other comments, since he did pull this from the consent calendar.
No, that's all my comments. I was just, when questions were answered, I was just going to make the resolution. That's all.
And it's a just for clarification, there's a standard percentage that we have for,
Inclusionary ordinance.
yeah, it's our inclusionary ordinance.
It's
So-
15%, that's correct.
Okay, just so everybody's clear. Councilmember O'Neill.
I move that the council adopt a resolution approving the condominium map for the Summit at Skyline, 435 Gateway Drive, assessors parcel number 009-540-110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160, and 170.
Okay, Councilmember Stone.
Second.
Thank you. And just as a point of order in general, if you're going to submit documents like this, they need to be done ahead of time, but this has nothing to do with this particular topic, so please vote. And that passes 5-0. Okay, and that brings us to a special presentation that we have. The proclamation for National Volunteer Month, and I have a proclamation here, and I think we have David Canada up there, yes, and Mr. Jim Lang.
Good evening. Thank you to the council for this proclamation. We appreciate it. Again, it's our annual.
How if I read a little of it first?
Oh, you want to read for it? Great.
Yeah, just a little.
Sure. It's more sense.
Thought you might want to know about, just so everybody knows what this is about, this is National Volunteer Appreciation Week. And whereas the city of Pacifica recognizes volunteers as volunteers make a world of difference, and citizens of Pacifica benefit from individuals that share their time and talents and efforts to help others and sustain the community, and that their services help enhance and maintain the quality of life for older adults and those with disabilities and promote socialization, whereas Pacifica Senior Services would like to recognize the volunteers that help the city to offer programs for our aging and disabled. And I'm going to skip down here to the important part. Pacifica Senior Services and Pacifica City Council agree to recognize these individuals for their many contributions and their very special accomplishments and all the hard work that they do. I'm adding now. Let it be proclaimed, April 6th through 13th shall be the National Volunteer Recognition Week in the city of Pacifica, and it is through these exceptional people that with extraordinary hearts that they make a world of difference in helping to sustain the great community that is Pacifica. And we all thank you so very much.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. Thank you, Honorable Mayor, for reading the proclamation, and Council for giving that to us. It's really with great pleasure I tell you that we'll be doing our volunteer recognition dinner on Wednesday, April 16th, and that's a chance when our city manager, our PB&R commissioners, and our city council members are invited to come and celebrate the 130 volunteers that will be receiving recognition for all their hard work. And it's our chance for the city to show their appreciation. This year's theme is Volunteers Make a World of Difference, and as you know, our volunteers really do make a big world of difference to many people. So again, they offer their talents, their expertise in facilitating our classes and activities. They help deliver our meals to the homebound, as well as the congregate lunch program, and they're just there helping us with our budget. This year, our volunteers have extended themselves by adding in more classes. Our participation levels have increased tremendously. Along with our rummage sales have increased the number of sales. Our gift shops increased number of vendors. So they've really made a big difference in our budget. This year we're going to come up a little over $20,000 over our program budget just in those activities. So they've really made a big difference that allows us to be able to offer the services in our community. I'll give you one quick story before I introduce Dave. 2 weeks ago, we had our Night on the Town event for our Meals on Wheels clients. And at that event, one of the sons came up to me and told me that their family's been in a dilemma what to do with dad, kind of thing. He's isolated down here in Pacifica. They live out of the area. And for the last 2 years, they've been pondering what to do with him. And they said because of the Meals on Wheels program, that's the only reason why they're letting him live at home, because they know there's somebody doing a welfare check, a daily visit, and knowing that he's going to get that meal. So again, we hear that story a lot from people that are out of the area. And again, it was just nice to see the person, the family member, who got to tell you face to face, it puts it all together. So with that said, I'd like to introduce Dave Kanata. Dave was nominated by his peers to represent the seniors tonight. Dave's been a long-time volunteer for us. He's an extension, I think, of Public Works. He's my handyman. He starts off every day going around the center, seeing if a light bulb's burnt out, something's broken. Over its rummage sale week, he's taking something home to fix it so we could sell it more. And at the end of the sales, he's taking stuff to Veterans Home, he's taking it to the Goodwill, or he's taking it to the dumps, you know. So a lot of work, a lot of time he spends, and anyway, he's a great pleasure to have at our center. At this time, I'd like to introduce Dave Kanata.
Good evening. My name's Dave Canada, and like Jim says,
was right to begin.
I've done everything down there, but the only thing is I want to tell you is I want to thank you people for giving me the opportunity to be able to help the seniors, and that's what counts. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I just want to add, if you've spent any time, and I know other council members have, and they want to say some things to all of you, but if you've spent any time at the community center, you know that senior services exist because of people like you. So thank you so very much. And I have a couple other council members who want to say something too. Councilmember Stone?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just spent some time last week doing Meals on Wheels, like I mentioned earlier, and I try to get down to the senior center as often as possible because it's just a very warm place every day of the week. There's a lot of activity going on. It's because of the volunteers and because of the programs that we have going on there, and it's one of my favorite parts about being on city council is being able to interact with that community. And I just wanted to please ask you to say thank you to all the volunteers, as we will at the recognition dinner, but I'm glad you're here representing them tonight, and thank you for everything that you do for our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor Pro Tem Irvin?
I'd just like to say thank you again so much for all of the amazing work that you do, both the volunteers as well as you, Jim. I know how much all of your work makes it possible for the volunteers to be there. And it's just an amazing amount of work that you do, and the opportunities you give people, and you give them a sense of worth, and just feeling so wonderful about making the friendships that they're making and enjoying each other's company and doing such good things for other people. It's just an incredibly wonderful thing. And it really is what makes Pacifica the incredible place that it is to be. And thank you, Dave, so much for volunteering so much of your time and energy. It means so much to so many, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Oh, they're not done. Councilmember Degree.
More thanks to you, Dave, and Jim, and the whole staff, and all the volunteers. I remember one time when I went, there was a mom with a young child, and I think that was very effective, too, that the little young person was very enthralled with all their grandmas and grandpas, and they were thrilled to see a young person. So thank you very much. And maybe they'd like a photo op or to advertise this. I think Janice has...
That's what they all want to do. Well, I'm going to let Councilmember Stone speak first. Go ahead, or I mean O'Neill.
Yeah,
blood. I told you, I'm still in the Bahamas.
My God, I have gray hair. No. So I just wanted to say I've been down there at the community center probably at least once a week, and it's really a hopping place, and especially the dance thing, and I like all the crafts and all of that stuff. And I have to really comment on the Meals on Wheels, as my mom we did use Meals on Wheels. This was up in San Francisco, and the highlight of her day was when the driver used to bring his 2 or 3-year-old in there, and she would talk about that for a couple days because the 2-year-old got into mischief, like 2-year-olds do. But it really was great for her, and it was something that made life a lot easier for my brother and I. So I do want to thank the volunteers, because they're the ones that really are the fabric of Pacifica. I mean, they keep this quilt going, and it really is important to make it the quality of life we have here. So I want to say thank you.
Thank you very much.
One last thing. Everybody's been mentioning the Meals on Wheels, and I think that's important, but it's not just about meals, because we did a welfare check the very first time I did it. And I hope that doesn't happen this Friday when I join you again, but I have to say, for some people, that is the only person that comes to their door. And it is critical to really make their life that kind of connection with the outside world. So thank every volunteer that helps with Meals on Wheels and everything else. Thank you so much. And we'll come down. You want a photo op? That's what you want? Sorry for the crowd. Let's indulge us just for a second.
Right.
So that was our special presentation. We have no public hearings tonight, and under council communications, I am going to share something. I'm going to go first for a change because it's on the same note. Just for Mr. Lang and everybody, this is also National Service Recognition Day month, and service recognition is April 1st. As a National Day of Service, it's also a Mayor's Service Day, and so we're participating, and the nation's mayors are increasingly having to turn toward service and volunteerism as a cost-effective strategy to meet cities' needs. AmeriCorps and senior corps address the most pressing challenges facing our city. I've done a proclamation here that we're contributing and sending for the National Day of Service, and I just wanted to let the council know that it's for the mayor's Day of Service, and I wanted you to know that in special note from me, it's in honor of all of our senior volunteers. So I wanted to say thank you and let people know why we're participating and how important your work is. Thank you. And with that, I'll save my other announcements to the end. Councilmember Stone.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the Pacifica Chamber of Commerce for inviting me and I think a couple of the other council members, but I know Mayor Pro Tem Irvin was there, to the county state of the county, I almost said state of the city, but the state of the county meeting last week. Very informative. Adrian Tissier and Dave Pine and Jerry Hill all presented, as well as Kevin Mullins. But for the council's knowledge, I think that what was most interesting was that Dave Pine brought up a potential initiative that they may be running for, or to deal with sea level rise in the Bay. We've been talking about it. And I know he's mentioned it prior, but it's something for us to keep track on. No mention of the coast, and we did have a conversation about that afterwards, because as we all know, we have very real coastal erosion issues, and so we'll talk further, and I encourage you all, if you do have conversations about that, to make sure that you're bending his ear about coastal erosion, as I'm sure you would. Also, this last weekend was just the Pacifica National Little League's opening day, which was very fun. But I did want to mention to the council that there was a nice honoring of Javier Chavarria and Omar Saleh for all their work with Little League. And I know that we've run into both of them in a lot of city committees and other things, but we never really talk about the community work that they have done. So I wanted to mention that to the council and to the public for all the hours and work that they've put in to that city facility, which is the Fairway Park, to improve it. And that's all done by volunteers as well. I thought it was fitting for National Volunteer Week and Month. So that's all for me. Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Okay, as Council Member Stone.
President.
Council Member Stone mentioned, I attended the the State of the County address, and that was very informative, very worthwhile event, and discussed many issues going on at a regional, state, and federal level. And I very much appreciate Chamber's involvement as well as their invitation to attend this very worthwhile event. So that was great. I also attended the Pacifica Resource Center board meeting, and they discussed many issues, including their strategic plan, their communications, their stroll is coming up. They are also hosting a leadership project in coordination with the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, and that's all about engaging other nonprofits in other communities and sharing information. So more information will follow on that, but they are very busy and doing a lot of great work in Pacifica. One of the events that's coming up is called the Art on the Coast, and it's going to be held in Half Moon Bay on April 25th, and it includes a number of local artists, and many of those artists are from Pacifica. So I'd encourage you to attend. The profits will go towards the Pacifica Resource Center as well as Coastside Hope. So that's really important events going on there. And one really significant event that I attended along with Council Member Degree was a press conference held by Congresswoman Jackie Spear and the South San Francisco Police Department and the Fire Chief Mike Massoni, and it was joined by local, state, and federal law enforcement and many elected officials around the Bay Area. And it was to announce the rollout of the human trafficking protocol for law enforcement in San Mateo County. And this is a very significant event, and it really changes the way we look at sex trafficking in California and specifically in San Mateo County. So a lot of these women that are involved in sex trafficking are underage, and they are treated as slaves. And we oftentimes think of these things that are going on in other countries, in other third world countries, but it's actually happening. in our own backyard. And so it's very, very important that we learn how to help these women and get them out of this horrendous living situation that they currently find themselves in. So I was very appreciative that Congresswoman Spear had this press conference, and it's a great learning experience, and we all need to be aware of the fact that these women are in our midst, they need our help, and we should do everything we can to help them. Let's see, I also attended a legislative committee with Mayor Nyhart, and the interesting thing about the legislative committee, that's by CCAG, and they received status of active 2-year bills tracked by the legislative committee. The deadline for introducing new bills was February 21st. 1,930 bills were introduced, and legislative advocates identify the bills that are of most interest to CCAG. So some of those bills, including some governor's proposals, including an $850 million proposal for cap and trade, and discussed how those funds might be appropriated. He also discussed water bonds, transportation bonds, and a variety of other bills that are still being evaluated by the Senate and Assembly. The governor also signed a package of bills for $687 million to help with drought-related issues. We looked at AB 418, which is a bill submitted by Kevin Mullen for a stormwater management program, and this bill is sponsored by CCAG, so it's very important to this organization to evaluate. And there's a number of other bills, but we will be exploring them as we find out how they're doing in the Senate and the Assembly. And that's about it.
Okay, Councilmember Degree.
Right, that was an excellent report on the trafficking, and it's a reminder that it isn't, when we say women, we're talking about sometimes young children, actually. It's very sad. So the Open Space Committee met, and we're almost finished going through the work plan for the different items to do, and we've scheduled going on field trips once again so that we actually know where these places look like and haven't seen in a while. So if you're interested, that's always on the third Tuesday. And if you want to go on a field trip, just check in with Lee Diaz, because he would know, I think, where all of us are going. As a Brown Act, we can't all be together at the same time, so there'll be numerous little field trips. Reminder that the trail, the Devil's Slide Old Road, which is now a county trail, will be opening. I think it is the 27th for sure.
Already open,
But for the public, the opening is the 27th, isn't it?
21st, it's already opened.
No, they had to cancel it, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Thursday it opens.
it's this
They had
Thursday.
to cancel it. Apparently, there were some safety railings that weren't quite established, so I believe you will see, it's probably on our web. Is it on our web? But it's open to the public about 9:30. There will be shuttles. I understand that our famous shuttle is already filled up. But starting then, you will be able to go there and hike and ride, and I understand that there's horse trails too, so that should be starting to go. That should, people have been looking forward to that a lot. So, what was that? So, the Colma Creek, we actually do have a small area of the Colma Creek, and we're talking about sea level rising, obviously not in our area, but I think you got the email, and I'm going to try to get a big map. I'm negotiating to get a bigger map so we can actually see the little piece. But it's always an interesting meeting. It's a very fascinating meeting. I enjoyed going to that thing. To remind everybody, the Economic Development Committee meets on the second Tuesday, and the members there are looking to hear from you what your view of what Pacifica is all about, and we're moving solidly on that. So that's at 6 o'clock at the police department on the second Tuesday. I think that's, I'm on the commute. We had another retreat, as it were, just to go over what our mission was. Our mission is to get you out of your cars. So there's all kinds of incentives on commute.org to help you to decide to go on a carpool or even to ride a bike if that's possible, and public transportation as well. And so on our weekends, remind you ad nauseum that we have a free shuttle, which is not just for seniors, although it looks like the senior shuttle, and it picks up people in the north end of town at the Good Shepherd area where the housing is for seniors, but it's open to anybody, and it's free, and it takes you to commercial areas every weekend from 8 to 5 on Saturdays and Sundays, so really ridership is what keeps those things here, so please plan some fishing on the pier, lunch somewhere along the route to keep it. All right, thank you.
Okay, just to clarify, because that's one of the things I was going to announce, is the opening kind of ceremonies, if you will, for the county park at Devil's Slide. The dignitaries are all up there in the morning. There'll be a ribbon cutting, a small ceremony at 11, and then it's open to the public at noon. And from that point on, it will be open to the public. And this is really the reason that we wanted our shuttle, as Sue said, which was very correct, because there's very limited parking on our side of Devil's Slide. So the shuttle that circulates, that's a free shuttle on the weekends, is going to be altering its route to include that parking lot. So there's some slight shifts now. So you can park at the Caltrans lot, take a shuttle up, do your hiking, and enjoy the scenery and one of the most incredible trails that you'll ever find in a county park anywhere. So I really invite you to participate in that. I do want to make sure that people know a couple of other things, and that council are reminded. You know, Mayor Pro Tem did a really nice summary of some of the legislation that's coming out. I just want to stress to people as we move forward, there's a lot of confusing information, and it seems bizarre to talk about stormwater in a drought, which is a controversial thing right now. But our stormwater monies have dried up from the state, and so all of the cities are in the state that do not have stormwater fees currently are going to be struggling with this. The City and County Associations of Government, which is CCAG, is one of the best working groups in the counties, where all 20 cities really work on these issues together. And we're trying to come up with a way to address that loss, that change, and to work that through. We mostly work to divide up transportation dollars. We're oversight on congestion management. Certainly Safe Routes to Schools is a piece of our programs, the Measure A funding. We have a significant role with Congestion Alliance. There's just a lot of projects that all of the cities work together on, and that's one of them. And we sponsored a bill so that joint powers agreements could actually even come forward with a proposed measure. So this is really to allow that kind of special relationship to happen, because we're not a special district, but we all have the same relationship with each other. And the estuary bill that is about the bay that David Pine is working on is really going to cut across 9 counties, and it's a miracle if it gets on ballot in all 9 counties by itself. So I'm very impressed to see that go forward. But I got to concur with Councilmember Stone that it sort of leaves us out in terms of all our interests being around the bay and sea level rise on the bay with all the corporations ringing the bay, but sea level rise is right in our backyard, so coastal erosion is a piece of that. The League of California Cities, the Peninsula Division, on Thursday night will be sponsoring a panel with Congressman, or with State Senator Jerry Hill, Assembly Member Kevin Mullen. I mean, all of the powers will be there, and they will be talking about, Rich Gordon will be there also. They will be discussing the legislative issues that you just talked about among themselves on a panel, so it should be a very interesting thing, and I intend to go to that on Thursday night. Also, Council of Cities is on Friday night. I remind everybody about those issues. And what we're going to be talking about is kind of an update. It's a panel that has been put together. It's hosted by San Carlos, so it's kind of appropriate there to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, if you will, of and the really good stuff that has happened, but stuff that is a huge challenge with shared services among cities. So, and there's a lot of different components to that. So panelists will be from Half Moon Bay, San Carlos, some of our JPAs. So it'll be an interesting set on Friday night as well. I also wanted to let people know, you've seen Mayor's Walk. It's been outed again, and we started that last month up in Fairmont and the Fairmont Shopping Center. And my focus, I've just chosen to really make it about something that's going on in the community. So what we did was try to hand out flyers last time and let people know about the airport changes that have happened and the airport one-way changes that are going to happen over the course of construction this summer. So, and we only met one person out of all these people, and that was a man, I believe, that his wife worked for the airport. So he was the only one that knew. So it serves a purpose to go around besides having our city services available. And so we will be doing that again on this Friday, as well as joining Meals on Wheels in the morning. So Mayor's Walk will be at noon. And last but not least, I wanted to well, no, not, I should mention the Beautification Advisory Committee meets on the first Wednesday of each month, and we're really looking at participation in Earth Day, which is coming up now in April very soon. Actually, it's the same weekend as Art on the Coast, I believe. It's the 26th, yeah. So there's a lot going on in April besides the volunteer recognition and all of those sorts of things. But I will tell you that it has finally happened. And yes, at the last City and County Association of Governments, I became the official chair for CCAG. So once again, it rests in Pacifica, and that was kind of a big deal. Yeah, and so with Councilmember Stone as chair on the bicycle and pedestrian and others, and Mike, you're taking a role here in congestion management, we certainly have some feelers out for all those grants and funds and things, and I'm very pleased with the way this council works and works on bringing home, because this work that we do outside of here is about bringing home dollars for Pacifica. It's about how we get Lindemar Boulevard paved next summer. It's how we got the shuttle. It's how all of those things, all that funding is not things that we have in our budget. We don't have that money here. So if we don't go out and work for it, it doesn't happen. So I'm very, very pleased with the mechanisms and work that the council up here is doing. And I'm very honored to be part of you. And with that, I will, unless anybody has anything else they want to add, we will move to oral communications, and I have a number of cards. First and foremost is Clorinda Campagna. I didn't see you out there. You're back there. Clorinda, and then Roger Medler, Anita Rees, and Jenny Jaquith. Oh, nope, that's on item number 10. I'll hold that. So I have 3 cards for orals. Clorinda.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, and staff. I have 3 items I'd like to mention this evening. UNICEF. We've been doing this for about 30 years, and I'm a little bit late in reporting how much we raised in 2013, but I would like to thank principals and teachers, and especially parents who allow their children to participate in the original Trick or Treat for UNICEF yearly. This year, we raised $2,162.23. And the schools that participated were Cabrillo, Ocean Shore, Valamar, Sunset Ridge, Ortega, and Good Shepherd Catholic School. So I want to thank all of you for always doing this. A lot of progress is made by the UNICEF national organization. Amazing progress has been made for vaccines, natural disasters they participate in, and also educational programs. So thank you again for always helping with that when we get that started in October. The other thing I'd like to mention is the Relay for Life. You'll be seeing some of these posters around. Relay for Life is 100% focused on saving lives, and I'd like to announce when it is this time. July 12th and 13th at Terra Nova High School. The relay is a weekend event, and we have a kickoff date of April 23rd from 6:30 to 8:30 at the Moose Lodge. And we want to invite everyone to come. Committees are working very hard to really reach out to everyone, and we want you to learn about the relay and what the Cancer Society does. I mean, I'm especially reaching out to the schools so that young people participate in it more and more. I heard the buzzer, but we're $1 million city, in case you don't know that. Actually, that happened in 2010, and so we are now really a $1 million plus city in many ways. And we do appreciate everyone who participates in this, and do come out this year for it. And one more thing is about the Pacifica Museum Center, of which we're hoping to turn the key pretty soon, and that's in the end of July. We hope the public, we want to thank the public. So many people have participated, individuals, organizations who have given us large and small amounts to help us to open the doors, turn the key for this museum to be open.
Now
Just one thing, the thermometer has been up there since 2009, and it's almost all red. So I'm going to be coloring it in tonight.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. Roger Medler, Anita Reese, and I think I just can't hand it another couple cards.
Oh, thank you for letting the woman speak and finish her speech. That was awful nice of you, instead of cutting off the mic. Anyway, I would like to be, I'm here for a CD tire break again. I would like to know how this person got the lifts inside of his shop 27 years later with no certificate of occupancy and no permit for expansion. There was 2 letters written to the city planning, and there was, and nothing was in objecting the permit, the lifts, and nothing was posted in our neighborhood. And I asked the planning department, how did he possibly get these lifts a year later as they drug it out for another year while I put up with the noise and the trash? So anyway, they said, oh, he just walked in and picked it up. I said, oh, wow, that's pretty nice. So he did receive the permit on May 2nd, 2014. I think that was a little outrageous here. He has, according to the request letter I have from Kathy, he has no permits for front parking lot, no use permit for the rear parking lot. I consider the lifts in violation, and no front end alignment permit, no original permit appropriate oh, he never had an original permit. According to the staff report, it was never approved for servicing vehicles, and the addition should have never been allowed, seeing he never had a fire lane on the parcel behind him. And fire marshal should have never allowed that. So, you know, I mean, after all these battles trying to get my home back, and I have done nothing to this man, and all you had to do is come in and give a certificate of occupancy. Why are we going through all this? So you have cost the taxpayers a lot of money. So thank you and good night.
Anita Reese, let's see. One item petition to adopt. Okay, Mike Andrews and then Tree Steyer. I assume that is oral communications, Mike. Okay.
Anita Reese with the Pacifica Resource Center. We're in the last few weeks left of our free tax services. Our last Saturday for taxes is April 12th, and our last regularly scheduled tax day is on April 16th after tax day. But we found last year and the past few years that even though it's after the tax deadline, people are still calling. So rather than me searching for volunteers to come back, we just schedule it. So, but even after that, we'll be doing taxes year-round by appointment. So folks just need to give us a call, or they can also drop off prior to April 15th their tax documents, and we can prepare them. or they can go online at myfreetaxes.com/PRC. We get credit for anybody who uses that. They just have to earn under $58,000 a year, and they can and be comfortable doing it on their own. Otherwise, they can come into the office and we can help them. We're also going to be continuing to be open on the second Saturday of the month for services to folks who can't make it during the week. Also, it'll give the community additional volunteer opportunities for folks who can't come during the week, and also an opportunity for donation drop-offs, because people can't always come during the times that we're open. We don't like getting stuff in the front of our office, because people still leave it there, or in the back of our office. Yeah, anyways. In April, as Karen mentioned, we'll also be hosting, on April 22nd, we'll be hosting Silicon Valley Community Foundation's Community Leadership Project. The PRC is one of those grantees, and we're looking forward to possibly using this space to host them and show them and highlight all of what Pacifica can offer. Also, as Karen mentioned, Art on the Coast is happening on April 25th at the Coors Family Center in Half Moon Bay. Last year, the event was at Mildred Owen Concert Hall, and it was great fun and mostly attended by Pacifica residents. So we're hoping that we'll have a good Pacifica turnout again this year, because all of the proceeds will be split between the Resource Center, COSIDE Hope, and Not for Sale, a national or an international organization. I also just wanted to quickly remind folks that anybody who isn't covered in healthcare needs to get covered by March 31st. There will be support on the 29th at Saramonte Shopping Center for free in-person help to enroll. If folks aren't enrolled by March 31st, they'll be charged, they'll have a penalty of $95 or 1% of their adjusted gross income. So folks keep thinking it's only $95, but it could be a lot more. So even though there will be waivers, we're not really sure how those are going to be implemented, so it's better for folks to just go on the 29th and get some information to make sure that they're covered. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Andrews, Tree Steyer.
My name's Mike Andrews, and first I want to thank the council for holding the study session on the climate action plan during the last meeting.
The mics, the TV can hear you, please.
Sure. And tonight I'd like to present a petition, a citizen petition with, I believe, 131 signatures on it on behalf of the Pacifica Climate Committee. And the petition is asking the council to adopt the CAP, the Climate Action Plan.
Okay, thank you. You can just hand it over there. Thank you. Tree Steyer.
Good evening, Teresa Dyer, 1408 Crispy Drive. It's nice to see Anna Reese give a good report, and Jim Haynes and so forth. It'd be kind of nice to get a report from the economic development and the beautification program and the mosquito abatement, you know. So it'd be kind of an update for the people of Pacifica. But once again, I'm here to complain about your communications because it's just not working. I've written the lawsuit in the paper, in the Tribune. I've read it in its complete form to you. And on May 4th, which is 20 days ago, I've responded, you know, to you, Marianne Nilehart, and you did return my phone calls. But I just want you to know that I haven't gotten an opinion from the city attorney yet. And I'm not going to wait much longer because, you know, this needs to be rectified. And, you know, if you really want people to communicate with you, you need to communicate with the people that are not only here for you in proclamations. You need to address the people that complain about things, because maybe then you'll get things resolved, you know? Thank you.
Thank you. I have no more cards for oral communication, so I'm going to move on to our first item under consideration, which is, in fact, the communication plan. And I understand we have quite a comprehensive staff report here.
I wrote myself something. Try and understand what you.
All right, good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. I'm Captain Joe Spanheimer with the Pacifica Police Department. I'd like to introduce my fellow committee members, and seated here at the table with me are Michelle Bridget Ragsdale of the Parks, Beaches, and Recreation Department, and on my far left, Ed Vandehay, a Management Information Specialist. Also on the committee in the audience are Raymond Dunguinis with Public Works, Debbie Garrett, Wastewater Treatment Plant, Tina Gibbs, Planning Department, Kathy O'Connell, the City Clerk, Clyde Preston with North County Fire Authority, I'm not sure if he could make it this evening, and Melissa Mondragon as well, could not make it this evening. Tonight, what I'd like to do is guide you through the staff report on the Communications Implementation Plan by using a PowerPoint. In keeping with the theme of the Communications Implementation Plan, we want to keep things concise, to the point, and without being too lengthy. And now Michelle Bridget Ragsdale will go on to some of the background of the implementation plan.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. During the City Council goal-setting process in September 2012, the adoption of the communication plan was designated as a high priority. And in November 2012, the Council had a subcommittee that was established to develop the communications plan. The plan development included determining goals, identifying audiences, developing messages, identifying communication channels, and providing guiding principles. As a result, there was a creation of the Communication Plan Focus Group who met in April 2013. Following this, a City Council study session was conducted in December 2013. And in January 2014, the Communication Plan Implementation Committee, comprised of city staff, began to review and examine the plethora of ideas given at these previous focus group and study sessions. Over the course of 2 months, the committee identified the core goals of the communication plan, as well as consolidated information to the final recommendation. In addition, the committee estimated dates of accomplishment, methods, possible constraints, and costs of goals and strategies.
Thank you, Michelle Bridget. As my colleague said, there was a great deal of information provided by all the groups. It was a rather daunting task, but what we did is use the methodology of SMART. And SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable and obtainable, realistic, and timed. We wanted to make sure that the ideas that we came up with were manageable numbers, and they were consistent with the brand of the City of Pacifica. We want to make sure it was done in an achievable time frame, and they were within the means of the city, the citizens, and the staff. And finally, we wanted it to be timed, indicating there's an end point, a date that we can look upon with accomplishment. Out of the numerous ideas that were put forth, we came up with 8 common themes, if you will. The first 4 are here: establish public relations policy. Second, ensure consistent messages. Third, coordinate department public relations efforts. Fourth, perform communication training. Fifth, coordinate website improvement. Coordinate social media efforts. Coordinate a staff speakers bureau. And last, establish working partnerships. And I will go into each of these individually. Next, what I want to do is, as you follow along in the actual staff report, whether you're at home or see it online in the audience, I want to go over the exact structure that we developed in the tables to lay things out. Obviously, on the left, you can see the goals and strategies, which we break down beyond just the 8. Next, we established a time to accomplish. Many of the things that were already brought forth are being accomplished right now. And if you look in the tables, there's a dot there indicating such. And then next, there are these things that we have yet to accomplish. What we did is we assigned each task by fiscal year. For the upcoming fiscal year of 14-15, next year of 15-16, and finally the third year out, 16-17. And if you look at I have an example here. If you look at an example of the table, in some places you'll see there's a dot indicating we're currently implementing these things, but also there is an indicator for, let's say, Q1, if you look at the first item, which I just took it as an example. We're doing it now, but can we do it better? Can we make improvements? And that's why we set a date in the future to refine these tasks that we have. Next, you see that there is a group, team, or agency assigned to each goal or strategy. And these are the people or the group of people that will be assigned to oversee the accomplishment of these goals and strategies. The public information officer, that has been deemed to be the city manager. And the city manager will oversee and coordinate the public information efforts and may appoint those other people to also do that task. Finally, we have an executive team. Executive team is a collection of all the department heads throughout the city of Pacifica. Human resources, we have management information specialist, that is IT, and again, that's Ed Vandehay, who's sitting here. We've included the Pacifica Chamber of Commerce. We are going to have partners in making this a success. We have a Civica users group. There's people already involved in maintaining the city's current website. And then lastly, the social media task force. People who put a lot of hard work in to develop the plan that was voted on at the last council meeting. We looked at 4 different methods of implementation. First, direct contact. That is face-to-face, that is me, that is other city members talking to people on the phone. Next is interagency. It can be department to department, it can be department to the Chamber of Commerce, the Pacifica Resource Center, other entities outside of the actual city organization itself. Next, written material, whether it's in print or via email. And then finally, technology, social media, emails, texts, that sort of thing. The next category is dependency or constraints. It is those policies, the equipment, and specific approvals that we will need to be in place before we can go forth. One big hurdle was cleared at the last council meeting with the approval of the social media policy. We have a category for periodic maintenance. Some things, once implemented, we can look at, maybe on a yearly basis, check up, make sure things are working, functioning as designed. Other things may need a daily attention, and each goal, each strategy is indicated as such. And then finally, we have an estimated cost. Essentially, all goals and strategies will involve some amount of staff time. And then other things will necessitate the purchase of equipment, the purchase of a subscription or service contract. So those are essentially, that is the information contained in each table. And next, I'll talk about each goal and strategy. So first, we discussed establishing internal public relations policies. We want to make sure that we create multiple layers of communication. Right now, we utilize phone, we utilize email, we utilize the media to some extent, but we want to expand on it. We want to expand our presence in social media. Establish a public information officer, which has been done. Provide more community involvement. It's about us getting the word out so the community knows what's going on, can respond back to us, and we can have that dialogue. Provide updates on issues and projects. We have many projects going on throughout the city, and as we've heard, the community wants to know what we're doing. Use direct mail. By using direct mail, we can get information out to pretty much every residence, every business within the community, but it does come at a cost. Use email and create distribution lists. There are functions that we can enable which citizens can select what departments they want to get information from. They can subscribe to the police department, the fire department, public works, human resources, as they're doing currently now to get council meeting agendas. Make budget information more user-friendly rather than volumes of columns of numbers and other data. Let's make it easy to understand. Use more charts, things of that nature. Publish commission and committee rosters so that people, if they have a concern, they'll know who to contact. Utilize emergency warnings. We have several methods right now. We have SMC alert, we have the sirens, but not everybody knows what the sirens mean when they go off. So we can utilize social media to explain those things. Create a social media policy. I think we can check that one off and we can begin to utilize that. Clarify expectations for response time to email, phone, written inquiries. That's something that's being implemented right now. Citizens would like to know, ideally within 24 hours, if they have a call, maybe an email. So the second goal, create a standardized format for forms. That goes hand in hand with establishing the branding of the City of Pacifica. We have a brand new city seal. We want to put it out there. That is the City of Pacifica. So when people see it, they recognize where it comes from. Forms, whether it's in press releases or other charts, reports, will be fairly common amongst all the departments. We can share the format so it's uniform. Establish the best practices for reports and presentations. Use things like we're utilizing today, PowerPoint, make it user-friendly, easy to read. Create a reference guide for departments' primary functions. That's something I believe we'd like to have HR, human resources, utilize. So that whether it's a police officer or someone from public works or wastewater, we all know what others do within the city. So if I get flagged down and I get a question, I can direct a citizen in a timely manner to the right spot. Number 3, coordinate department public relations efforts. We'll try to do the best we can in getting meeting agendas out earlier. That way if people have questions, they can call ahead of time or email and add to what we're doing. Publish city articles in the Tribune. If we have press releases, I know sometimes as police or fire, they get put in there, but it's not always a guarantee. Will we have to actually buy space to guarantee that we can have something in the Tribune or other print media? That's something that we'll have to look at and comes with a cost. Use email blast and distribution lists. Again, we are utilizing that, but not to a full extent within the city. Hold more community meetings and events. By utilizing social media, getting more blasts out there will make people more aware of what's going on, about study groups, study sessions, things of that nature. Hold more department open houses. There's department open houses that I didn't know about before joining this committee. Wastewater has an open house. You can get a tour. We do tours at the police department, the fire department does as well. Get that information out to the public. Create customer service surveys by department. Use easy-to-access venues such as SurveyMonkey to see how we're doing. Establish electronic kiosks and marquees. You know, the one that comes to mind right now, I think everybody has seen throughout the city, is the one at the community center. You know, have things like that at more places throughout the city, whether it's City Hall, police department, so you can see what's going on. It's updated on a timely basis. You know, it's attractive. Hold more community meetings. Again, I think I've mentioned that before, but we get the word out, we put it on a kiosk, we get people to come, we can communicate, have that dialogue. Same thing with gatherings, festivals. You know, utilize the resources to advertise things at the Fog Fest. You know, city departments are at the Fog Fest. You know, use that forum so we can engage the public. Moving to number 4, perform communication training. We want to promote continuing education for department staff. Provide staff with customer service training. People call on the phone, how do we greet them? What do we want to say? They come up to our desk, how should we interact with the public? And then provide training in public speaking so that, you know, later on somebody wants a representative from the city to speak at their event. We can do so in a professional, positive manner. Number 5, coordinating website improvement. I think we have a really good website. Can it get better? Probably, and we're going to look at doing so. So we'll upgrade our website software, reorganize it a little bit so things are a little bit more easy to find, so not as buried. We definitely want to enhance the frequently asked questions section of our website. And then promote it, get it out there. As part of the social media policy that was adopted last council meeting, we can put blurbs out there in social media, but we should always make an effort to refer people back to the city's website. That's where we want to have our focus. Number 6, coordinate social media efforts. We talked about it again at the last council meeting, but social media that we want to look at is obviously Facebook. It's probably the most popular one out there. There's other ones such as SMC Alert, San Mateo County Alert. It's county-wide. We can put messages out there for just our city or throughout the county. Nixle is very, very popular. It can be utilized by the city. Again, it's just for the city of Pacifica, though, not county-wide. Nextdoor we talked about, and we're going to go into it a little bit more in depth here in a few minutes. And then Twitter. Now, I have asterisks next to Facebook and Nextdoor. What I want to do is just reiterate, for the first year, we are going to pretty much look at just one-way communication. We want to enable these things, but we need to gauge what the demand is going to be from the public and adjust our resources as necessary, because it could be a full-time job. The diagram up there just sort of indicates sort of how Nextdoor sort of functions. In the purple, you have all those neighborhood groups, all essentially talking amongst themselves. That's how that works. They're virtual neighborhood groups. They talk amongst themselves. And once we enable the city's portion of Nextdoor, the city will be able to inject information, send information down to be shared amongst those groups. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ed Vandehey for a little bit to talk about the social media.
At the last council meeting, we did go over the social media policy, and there was some questions about Nextdoor, so we thought we would supply some screenshots so that people understood a little bit more about Nextdoor if they weren't familiar with it. So once here we have a screenshot of the city of Belmont, and once we are able to launch Nextdoor as a city program, we would have something similar where we can post messages to those members of the city, the citizens of the city that are members of Nextdoor neighborhoods within our city. So here's an example of where we could post a message, and we can include attachments such as Adobe Acrobat PDF files and also photographs, which is kind of nice. So the recipient would then get a message similar to this one. Next slide, please. And this is from the city of Belmont's police department. And they've made an announcement. And so each member of Nextdoor that's within the city limits or within the receiving neighborhood would receive this message. And more than likely, they would receive it on their website timeline. If they also subscribe to the service with their cell phone, then they would be alerted with their cell phone, which is kind of nice. And there's also an email option as well. So the critical alerts will send out the message right away. If it is just a normal standard alert, or I'm sorry, a standard message, then it could be delayed for a period of 24 hours to say, you know, this is activity that has happened in your neighborhood in the last 24 hours. That's a service of Nextdoor. Here's another example of an actual message received or sent out by the city of Belmont. And it is a message from the city manager's weekly update. And you can see down there at the bottom, it does include a PDF file showing the Acrobat, Adobe Acrobat file that's attached. The messages from Nextdoor can include a reply option. If the reply is directly to the originating message, then it would go back to the city office that initiated it. Once the two-way communication is provided. So if they reply to the discussion within the neighborhood, then it just kind of bounces around within there. So it's very important to note that Nextdoor really doesn't allow city governments to play Big Brother, so to speak. So we can't go into a select neighborhood and say, oh, okay, what are they talking about? Right. So it's very important that be stated. Here's a screenshot of Nixle, which is more police department, law enforcement related. Citizens can subscribe to this service much like Nextdoor or Twitter. So, and you would receive your alerts either via email or on your cell phone. And there are smartphone and tablet apps or applications for each of these social media venues.
Thank you, Ed. I want to move on next to number 7, coordinate a staff speakers bureau. And what we want to do is establish a speakers bureau list. People from various departments that are qualified and confident, and they can speak to groups of various organizations upon a request. We'll also establish a list of city-related presentation topics. If somebody wants to learn about saving water, fire prevention, traffic safety, what have you, they can pick from a list, and we'll have a designated trained speaker on that topic. And the last category, number 8, establish working partnerships. In this way, we want to enhance our relationship with the community, because we understand there's a great value of working together and becoming partners with those in our community. So, number 1, we want to provide more information to schools electronically. Sometimes it's a little bit cumbersome to try to pile a bunch of papers in a student's backpack before they rush off to catch the bus. We want to make sure things get to the households where they're needed.
Kids.
Provide information to community groups and clubs. whether it's, civic organizations, religious organizations. They're partners that we need to get out the message to. We want to continue to televise council meetings. Like tonight, we have channel 26, but there are other venues that we can also, get the message across. Not everybody has access to channel 26. Use local media. And whether it's the print media, radio, television, we want to make use of it. Several different outlets that we can use to get our point across. Create a 311 mobile app. There are apps out there. You can utilize your smartphone to report crimes, report if maintenance is needed, potholes need to get repaired, lights need to get fixed, that sort of thing. They're out there. We need to explore that. Provide content to the Pacifica mobile app. That's something I believe is more of Chamber of Commerce oriented. It's help bringing people into our community to enjoy the restaurants, enjoy the coast, and make them more partners with Pacifica. And then last, conduct a mayor's walk, coffee with the chief, other things like that to get city staff more involved with the community, put our faces out there.
Yeah.
In conclusion, City of Pacifica is committed to achieving excellence in all our communications. We will provide timely, accurate, and complete information to the public and within the city organization. We will standardize the form and appearance of our communications so that the public can easily recognize information being provided from the City of Pacifica. We'll strive to deliver consistent messages about our services, and we will use a variety of means to communicate the message to reach the maximum number of citizens.
Very good. Thank you very much. Great presentation. And it's great to see all of you guys and so many staff here. I love it. So council communications first, or council questions first. Sue,
you mentioned,
Councilmember Degree.
You mentioned subscriptions. My understanding is when you say subscription, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to pay for these things, does it?
Regarding subscriptions, let's say for the Tribune, we may have to buy ad space, and
no. At the
yes.
was just a subscription to some app, I think it was. It was just a slide before this one?
The 311.
Something like that. There were a couple things there. You mentioned subscription.
The 311 mobile app.
Do any of those cost the person that wants to use them?
We've looked at a few 311 apps for other cities, and there's no cost to the citizen to download the app. They're free, but there is a cost to develop the app. And it varies between cities.
Once it's developed for the resident, it's just if they want to have it, they can.
Okay. Yeah, they can download it.
All right,
yes.
thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
So do you believe these goals are achievable without adding additional staff as they're being implemented here? Do you think the current staff could handle all of these objectives?
Yeah, I think the committee believes they are achievable. Obviously, some will take time. And when we looked at the timeline, we vetted this through the executive team. We looked at it. We want to make sure it is achievable. And the staff time is going to be in addition to normal everyday duties. So if we did too aggressive of a time frame, maybe it wouldn't have been achievable. So that's why we want to make sure it was realistic. And we do believe it can be done.
Yeah. It's really a great example of how wonderful things could work when you work together, and this is just really nice to see, and I so appreciate how many people were involved in creating these goals. Just done very professionally, and it's just a beautiful job, I think. A couple questions, though. In terms of estimated cost, most of the time an estimated cost isn't listed. Is that to be determined? Is that to be assumed?
That's correct. We just didn't research every estimated cost. We know that there's always staff time associated with every task, but that will have to be looked at, the cost. And we do intend to look at this annually, and when we do update it, we can bring that information back as the item warrants it.
Okay, great. And when you say, for instance, that the group that's responsible is executive board, is there going to be one person that is going to be the central go-to person, or is there like a common number of meetings that you're going to have? It's just going to be interesting to see how you're going to go about achieving these goals.
The point person.
Right.
Is going to answer that.
Why don't I weigh in on this one? Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm City Manager Lori Tinfo, and I will probably be that one person, technically. I am your public information officer, although I will do lots of delegating, as staff has indicated. So you'll be hearing from me as needs come up, and you'll have lots of participation by the rest of the staff.
Great. And one last question I had, I would really like to see an idea of the time commitment that each of these is going to require, if that's possible.
Okay, it's something that we'll have to, examine, and it's going to vary by each goal. So it would take a little bit of time to come up with the amount of time involved in each.
If I might just ask a question, when the action item is listed on the table, my understanding is that you intend to start it and then keep doing it, correct?
Correct. Each thing should be, it's an ongoing item.
Yeah, and I mean, if we could, we'd be doing all of these things right now. It's just a matter of ramping them up over a series of years.
Staff to do that. Yeah. Okay. We're still in questions. Councilmember O'Neill.
I kind of had a question for City Manager. You're going to be the public information officer, right? So you're going to be the face to the public.
That's correct, yes.
And releasing news releases. What are the plans to determine what is a news release, what is not a news release? What's it going to do? I remember reading, I couldn't exactly find it here, but about you were going to circulate it to the council or something about all of us. Maybe that was on something else.
That was on a specific topic that I alerted you that I was writing something, yeah. But in general, I mean, press releases now are written by staff, and unless they're very routine, they are routed through me so I can read them and allow them to be blessed, for lack of a better term. So we'll continue to do that process.
Okay, so if there's some specific thing that happens in town that we want the public to know about, settlement of a court case or whatever, is that then going to be like have Michelle write that one up and then give it to you? Or who's going to determine if there is a news release to be released on a specific item?
I'm sure it'll be a case-by-case basis. There have been a number of issues recently where both Michelle and I reviewed the press release before we gave the okay for it to be issued. It just depends on the topic and the timing of the issue. And so far, we're working that out very well.
Okay, thank you.
Just one point, a question of clarification. You said, or Councilmember O'Neill just referred to you as the face of the city, and what I'm seeing around here is much different than that. I wanted to make that, am I reading this correctly? The staff or the face of the city?
I'm not sure exactly what Councilmember O'Neill meant when he used that term. If there was a spokesperson, then that would probably be me at the staff level, but as also council members can serve as the face of the city, for example, depending on the topic. But I do want to emphasize your point that this is a broad staff initiative, and you will see many people taking roles in making this plan come alive. And I think that's been communicated here tonight.
That's what I saw, and I also saw that the training for communication is embedded in there. Is that correct? And everybody wants to participate and step up, and okay, great, I'm loving it. Councilmember Stone.
Thank you. First, I just wanted to say thank you to the team, the internal team, for putting this together. It's nice to see people working from different departments on this, and it seems like you have a nice level of synergy together, and I'm sure that'll continue. So this is very promising, very excited for where we are right now. And I'm glad you did make the point, a couple people made the point of kind of the differences, or touching on the differences between this plan and kind of the next step, which might be some of the policy implementation. Can you tell me about, I guess this might be for the city manager, maybe for Kathy, whomever, but this is the plan. Tell me about like our policies for each initiative and how the policy and the plan are different.
Well, for example, at your previous or your last council meeting, you adopted a social media policy. So we needed to have that in place before we then launched into social media. So it's a good practice. It indicates the structure we're going to use to move forward with social media, et cetera. I don't think every single one of the items on our list here will need a policy. If they do, if we decide that we do need to have a policy around some action, we'll bring that back to the council as appropriate. If it's an administrative policy, perhaps it might be at my level. But we will use our best judgment in determining where a policy is necessary and where perhaps there is not a policy necessary.
Okay. Great. I know that in questions from the public or other comments we've heard is that, especially in this, because the plan was very, well, there was a lot to the base plan that staff took, and it was intentional, but it was also, I know, a big ask to come and give some starting points. And I think we're all very anxious to kind of, bite off the whole enchilada at one time, but I do appreciate the course that you're all talking about. It's, let's do these first steps. Let's make sure that they're working right, and then we can move on to the next. And I think, over the next couple steps, we can get to the things like two-way communication. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that's the first thing people really would, maybe the first next step. But I think it's smart that you guys have really are sticking to getting information out first and seeing what the response is like. So I appreciate that. I want to say thank you for that. That's really all I have, except for the only other thing I have, a question I would ask you is the organization and the chart. Is this something that's going to be like on the website, these charts here, and so that the public can follow this, or is this more of an internal planning document for us?
Well, I'd say that this is more of an internal planning document, but that doesn't mean we're not going to share it. It's already up on the web. We're happy to leave it up there so that people can, it's almost like a scorecard. You can follow along with what's coming up next.
Right.
And as was mentioned earlier by someone on staff, we're going to be coming back to you annually to give you an update on how we're doing, what else we might want to add. I'm hoping that maybe we'll be able to even go a little faster than what we've anticipated. But I don't want to make promises. That's sort of walking before you can run.
Sure.
And so that's what we want to do, is make sure we can walk well before we start running. But
Yeah,
so you'll have a chance to hear from us annually, if not sooner than that.
Okay, thank you.
I only had one question. I have a lot of comments, but I only have one question, and then we'll go to the cards. Under the website and the upgrade, I'm reading that, I hope correctly, that the reason you put in a cost is because you see that as a priority or something close to a priority website.
Go ahead, Ed.
The $25,000 upgrade cost is an actual quoted cost from the Pacifica group, which the company name is actually Pixel Pushers. I love that name. Yeah, they have upgraded their software to include a lot of mapping, and have made substantial maintenance upgrades. And so in order for us to get to that next level, we would have to spend at least the $25,000.
So I'm assuming that that's one example of something that we would be analyzing and looking at, and it's not, just because it's on here doesn't mean it's a fixed in stone thing, and that's why it says there's a request for proposals that will have to go out. Okay.
Right.
I just wanted to make sure that people were reading this correctly. I do want to say that while I appreciate the look of our website, it's really hard on the face page to sort of figure out what it, there's too much stuff there, and I think everybody sort of recognizes that. So it is a priority, but we have to do what we can do with the staff time, right? And the cost. Okay. All right, I just wanted to make sure we were all reading this correctly. Okay, so I have 3 cards on this issue. They are Jenny Jakewith, Chris Vogel, and Cindy Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I just want to make a couple comments about it, having been involved in what were some pretty minuscule initial efforts in comparison to what we have now. And I think that if I had any vision for this when Councilmember Stone and I were working on this, the work that the city staff has done on this committee far outshines anything that I had, in my imagination of what would transpire from this. And I think it speaks to just exactly what this community deserves, and the presentation itself is a perfect example of the kind of communication that that ought to be happening in the community. And I really want to thank all of those city staff members who were involved in this work. Your work has been very professional and very thoughtful, and I'm just personally delighted with your efforts. I'm not surprised at all. I know that the capability is there. It's just nice to see it happen. There was one particular area, well, 2 things that I want to address really to the council. And I also want to acknowledge our city manager's efforts and leadership in this effort. I think it was well done, and I appreciate all of her involvement in it. There's just a couple comments that I want to address specifically to the council as opposed to the staff, because I think they've done their job and will continue to do their job. There's one piece that I think is missing, and it made me realize from that initial effort that we did that I would hope would be included, but that really is an important part of the council involvement, and that's communication with city committees and the commissions. There's a comment in there about that. But, one of the recommendations that was made originally was that there be quarterly or, semi-annual meetings with committees and commissions. And they're such an important communication tool for the community, and that I would think that would be really important to incorporate in there. And that brings me to my last point, which is you 5 individuals as elected officials are also very critical to this whole communication plan. And I think the mayor's comment about the recent mayor's walk is a classic example of what's been a tradition in this community and has really worked at getting the word out to people in the community. So I hope you will continue that and some of the other items that are on that list, and I hope you will continue.
Sorry, Jenny.
I hope you will continue to support the staff effort.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thanks for your efforts. Chris Vogel and Cindy Abbott and Roger Medler.
Good evening. My name is Chris Vogel. Thank you for your time. I'm going to do a little reporting from the scene here now. It's 8:40 on a Monday night. We have a room here for the people not here. We have a room here half full with city department heads and other city employees. And I want to thank everybody that's here tonight for doing some outstanding work on this communications plan. A lot of work was put into this. I participated in a very small amount of it in a focus group. There were a couple of focus groups held. There was a study session held. And a lot of time was spent on this. And I want to thank everybody. It's a very nice plan. One thing I hope as the discussion continues tonight was I was just a little bit confused as to who the point person would be on the city should any follow-up be needed. So if a press release was put out, like who would the contact person be for any further information? I would assume that would be on the press release itself, but that hasn't always been the case in the past. So if there just could be some clarification as to who people in the community would contact for specific follow-up information, that would be great. And then lastly, I sound like a broken record when I bring this up, but this is going to involve a little two-way communication. And you've done all this work. Pacific Coast Television's awesome. They're here covering this. You can stream this broadcast anytime you want on demand on the website. Is there anybody else here from the media covering this? This is a communications plan where the city is trying to reach out to the various forms of media that we do have in this town. I don't think anybody's here from the media. So, I try to do my little part with my website, but it is somewhat disappointing and frustrating that we don't have members of the media here. And, it was really depressing to hear Captain Spanheimer mention that our paper of record in town won't necessarily print press releases. And, I'll just leave it at that. So, thank you very much for putting this communication plan together. I hope the other half of the communication plan, which wasn't addressed here, which is the public's involvement, I hope they step up. Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy Abbott, followed by Roger Medler.
Good evening. Cindy Abbott, and I'd like to thank the Implementation Plan Committee for all the work that they've done here. It looks like people really came together and put a robust set of tools in place for communicating. And I particularly liked at the end where it spoke about using a variety of means to communicate the same message to meet a maximum number of citizens. I was honored to be part of one of the focus groups, and that's something that came out is that we all like to receive our communication in different ways. It might be a generational thing, it might be personal preferences. So it's good to see that we have a really detailed list of different ideas here for sharing information. I'd also like to thank Ginny for bringing up the items on commissions and committees, and will continue to say that I look forward to having that be firmed up and having more communication and understanding of what roles are in that area as well. One of the things that I wasn't sure about, and the hardest thing is we now have all these different ways to communicate, and I'm not quite clear if there's been use cases developed for the hardest thing about communicating, which is what's the content? Are we looking expanding our content? We're now going to have all of these different platforms and different vehicles out there, but the trick is, what are you going to put out there on it? And will we start hearing more information and more details and things coming out on a regular basis? So that's what I'm hoping to see as the next step, is what's going to be communicated. This is a great set of tools that are being put in place, but then what will get everybody's attention is the information itself and the content that's communicated. So thank you.
Thank you. Roger Medler. And that's the last card.
Yeah, I'm not too real prepared for this, but I had the lack of your communications, like Teresa was saying, it's a lack of communication. I'm Lucelia Quick. I tried to talk to her at the city hall, and she called the police on me, and then I had to track her down here in the parking lot of the city council and asked her about her involvement with the CV Tire and Brake, and she said she has nothing to do with that. And then I have talked to Lynn Stone, and he says that I have to work with people involved violation, and I don't think I have to do that. And I've talked to you, Marianne Nyhart, and you came over to my house, and you said you were going to look into the situation and never got back with me. And Sue, you know, I mean, we talked like 7 years. I gave up after 7 years of trying to communicate with you, and I mean, it's like you said, because of the bureaucracy, there's nothing you can do. I mean, that's little, you know, this is communication. Thank you.
And that's our last card. Bring it back to council. And I have things to say, but I'm going to let you go first here. Councilmember Degree.
All right, you mentioned that this was a daunting task, and I would say it obviously was, but it's also masterfully done. Really awesome schedule there. I think it would be very easy to evaluate every year. I really like that component. Honing in on the executive summary page, I think if you're using the pamphlet, it's page 10A or something like that, 8A, 10A, and in the packet, it's probably 60 or something, close to, it's probably 99. Looking at the bold print there, it says key dynamics between the city and its people. What I noticed in everything, and my assumption was when we started with the communication plan, for the city communication plan, would be that it would be our communication as well. City Council, not heavy on staff only, although as I said, it was an awesome report. I liked every bit of it. It's just this one component where I'm looking at its messaging out and messaging to, as well as there were statements here and there about back and forth. I'm urging council to add to the approval, because I'm definitely ready for approval, to make that motion, to make an amendment that would highlight or emphasize the open forums for citywide discussions. So if you could get back to number 6 by any chance, can you go back to number 6? Yeah, right there, go back to 6. Even though that's talking about social media, as I know some of you pointed out to me, that is a way of dialogue, and that will be in baby steps. Well, let's not use baby steps. That'll be in steps, and we'll get to that. That's not exactly what I'm asking council to put their tone on. I'm asking council to say, let's have that dialogue where, as in this room, we can see, and I'm hearkening back to the 2 general plan meetings we had, where we advertised well, where we televised, and we had people coming from all over the city of Pacifica that most of us had never seen before, and that our city manager, Lori, put on some awesome study sessions on this plan and on climate change, where we actually had more than one microphone that could be moved around. We actually sat in areas where we could all see and hear each other and the visual props. So I'm urging council to, yes, approve this communications plan, but to put our tone as council as embracing open forums on major issues, so that when somebody goes to the website and sees communication plan, they see a warmth or an invitation and an openness that, yes, you're out there. We are a community. We want to sit with you. We want to hear you. We also want to enable you to speak with each other face to face, and then we can go back and have staff hone it down, and then we can come to a vote. So I'm urging you to approve this plan with that amendment for emphasizing in some way open forums for major issues in our community.
Okay, who's next? Mayor Pro Tem?
Okay, again, I would really just like to thank everybody involved, starting with the subcommittee, because honestly, if Len Stone and Ginny Jakewith didn't get together and form this subcommittee and talk with all these individuals, this goal would never have been created. And it really is something that we needed desperately, and it was done so beautifully. So I really, again, want to extend my appreciation to staff and the city manager and everybody involved, because it really is a gratifying piece of work, and I'm really thankful that you did it. One thing that I really appreciated as well was the element about professional development. And again, I want to thank the staff for being willing to commit themselves for professional development, because that takes time as well. And again, you only have so many hours in the day. So thank you for committing to that as well. And I just wanted to remark on your comment, Sue. I know on section 3.4 it said hold more community meetings and events. Is that something, do you think that is enough, or you want to?
No, I didn't. It's actually, I think it's also even under the heading of department. Although I think it's valuable, and I'm glad that it's there, I'm still looking for a little bit more council emphasis on it. That comes under the heading, I've put it down, I can't remember what the heading was.
And one thing, people had mentioned committees and commissions and maybe getting some more feedback from them, so that's possibly something we could consider. And I saw you did have the commission committee rosters, and I think we might want to add minutes to those as well, just have a consistent policy in terms of our reporting of minutes.
Yeah, aren't they up there?
Well, it just in here, it says published commission committee rosters. And then so I don't know in all cases if we always have the minutes there, so.
The clerk is telling me that we do that currently.
Okay.
Perhaps we haven't posted the rosters, and that's why it's.
And it's more in terms of consistency with the type of minutes that we receive from the different committees and commissions.
We'll make sure that happens.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's it.
Just as a point of comment on that, I think that also speaks to, we get lost on the website.
Right.
We have a lot of trouble finding stuff on the website.
Right.
So
Yeah,
I concur with you that it feels like it's not there.
Right.
But,
No, and I've read the minutes many times from the committees and commissions, but not all in a consistent way. And that's
and there's some that the rosters are right there. If you go to some cities, like you pull up the, PB&R, and there's the whole list, and everybody's there, and you can see the minutes, and it's a whole usable page by itself, and I'm not, it's what we have, and I'll save my comments to last, but Councilmember Stone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm glad Ginny Jakewith is here tonight, because I did want to thank her for all the work. It's a long time we were meeting, and I appreciate all the back and forth that we had in doing this, the focus groups and reading the best practices of how other cities do it and all that. So I appreciate all that time and effort that you did, and I'm very happy that we're here today. I really hope this is just the beginning of the city changing its culture, and this will be hopefully part of our culture, and we'll look back 5-10 years from now and be a model for other cities and how well we communicate. That's really my vision, and I hope we can keep progressing to that one step at a time. And I appreciated a lot of the comments from the public as well. I'm glad Chris Vogel mentioned the press release contact person and follow-up. It's not something that we had previously heard of before, and I'm sure that's something that we can add more consistency to as we do that. Also, the city committee and commission meetings, I'm glad Cindy mentioned that, because I think we had focused on that. Councilmember or Mayor Nyhard, and I guess at the time, your mayor as well, when we were doing the committees and commissions revamping, and that was something that was an annual report, and a collaboration between the council and the committees is something that we wanted to focus on. So it's not something that's listed here, but maybe it should be listed as well in the same context as the committees and commission documents. I also appreciated the comment about our content as well. I know I've had many conversations with Ginny and also with the city manager about content, and when are we going to communicate? And then obviously we're talking about the different mediums here, the different portals to reach people, but what is going to be our kind of a systematic approach to when we communicate and how we communicate. Like, for instance, I always think of projects. Like, I think of maybe something like the undergrounding of the utilities at Palmetto here, and just saying, okay, this is coming up, and that would be something that's shot out, and then now we're going to be starting the work. You'll notice it. We're in the middle of the work, and then it's now been in conclusion. That was a little bit to my question earlier, Lori, was about the our procedures and our policy. And is that something that's going to be refined more at a next step? Because I know this is more of an outline, kind of the systematic how we're actually talking.
Well, with the social media policy that you all adopted, there is a next step with procedures that's at the staff level that I'll be working with staff on about how we're going to do that. We haven't talked more about how we might apply that same concept to this, but I'm sure we will be figuring out how we're going to make some of these happen if there's questions around them. And you make a very good point. That is a standard communication practice, to tell people what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them.
Absolutely.
Because everything needs repeating in order for it to stick.
Yeah.
So it's very, very good point to make.
Okay, so we might anticipate that in more follow-up documents and, I guess, actual policies.
I think you'll just start seeing it.
Okay. Okay. Well, we do want to see the consistency, though, and know what to expect. And I would like it to be documented somewhere about what we're going to do. And I appreciate that you said it's going to be a case-on-case basis, so we're going to have more contentious or maybe disasters versus a annual festival is going to be communicated a lot different. Who's going to handle that communication? I appreciate that. So I am ready to make a motion, if you don't mind. Would you like to make a comment
Well, we have still to hear from Mike O'Neill, Councilmember O'Neill, and then I've got some comments I want to make and maybe a solution to some of this.
My turn?
Yeah.
Okay. First off, I know there's a lot of work went into this, and I appreciate all the staff and actually moving forward with this. But in kind of deference to what Sue mentioned, and one of the comments made by one of our commissioners is perhaps, and I'm looking here at the table of contents, and there is nothing to do with city council. And maybe in the communications policy, and I imagine there would have to be a couple of us on there, on some sort of subcommittee of what does the city council want to do, what is their policy to help communicate to the public, and maybe actually set guidelines and goals for, do we meet with one commission a month on an annual basis? It was Sue's comments of having the council kind of have a meeting. I don't know how that would work if you don't have an agenda. Can the city council have a meeting with no agenda? Okay, and I mean, you made it sound too like it was just kind of, we sit here and anybody comes in and talks to us, and I don't see how that could work. I think we'd have to have some specific agenda items that we would have to put on there. But I would like to throw out for a suggestion that we have a city council chapter under the table of contents, and we actually set the goals and formalize, because we've been yakking about a year now for meeting with the commissions and committees, and maybe formalize that in this policy.
Well, let me just chime in with a couple of things. Staff is working on pulling together the appropriate approach to having a better connection between the council and the commissions, and a number of staff members have already done some work on that, and I think I'm the bottleneck trying to pull it all together to then come back to you with an approach that I think represents what you've directed us to do. So we're making some progress, and you're going to be hearing more about that shortly. I thought I would just also comment on Councilmember DeGree's interest in community meetings, and you know, I obviously agree with that approach also. You mentioned the study session we had on the communication plan, and that's like a perfect topic to have a community meeting, and that's how I differentiate it as a community meeting versus a public hearing or a city council meeting, et cetera. So I'm very much in sync with what Councilmember DeGree is raising, but those methods don't work for every topic. But we are likely to see more of those applied to topics as they come forward. As We've talked about, the council has made statements about certain topics that are going to be coming in the fall, and that we definitely want to have some community meetings around them. So we'll be using that as a tool to engage the community and to communicate. It's not something that's one size fits all. There are other topics where it's not such a great fit. But I don't know, as much reassurance as I can provide that that is a method that we want to engage here more, that's what I'm hoping to do.
Okay, so I'm going to make some comments here because, first of all, I want to say very clearly that there's a secondary thing going on that I am so impressed with. I want to thank every single staff member that's in this room tonight. I am so proud of the committee stepping up and volunteering, I hear, to present, and that's never easy. To be on camera, you know, you're out here in front of everybody. I love that, and I appreciate it so much, and I appreciate all the input. But I really, really want to thank you, Lori, for providing the leadership that allows that to blossom. Communication is not something, although we're putting together a plan, and we need to have structure to get this thing going, but it's something that happens every single day that one of our staff interact with the public. Every single day. And, you know, sometimes you deliver a message and people think we haven't communicated, and you received a message and you tried to answer questions and the person didn't like what you were saying, and that doesn't mean you weren't trying. It happens to us on council all the time. It just happens. But how you handle it is like the face of customer service. It's the face of the city. You really are. And I'm so impressed with the way you participated, those of you that helped with the study session and with putting together this plan. The other thing I want to recognize and underscore for the city in general, the citizens, is I also appreciate, and I appreciated Mayor Pro Tem's comment about the staff time that each of these items would take. You may see things out in fourth quarter or the next year on that list. I appreciate that you did that and bid off only what you could handle at a time, because this is an accumulative rolling plan. Once you start something, people don't want it taken away, so you're adding more work, and let's just be honest, we've lost a good deal of our staff, you know, like 30 of y'all. So I'm very impressed with the way you're stepping up on this, and I just want to say thank you. As part of the council here, I want to say thank you. So that's something that hasn't happened. I do want to thank Councilmember Stone and former Councilmember Jakewith when she was up here for jumping into this and organizing it. But the recommendation that I would have after all the thank yous is that we do add a council agenda, and I kind of get why you didn't, because you're putting this together as staff and none of us were there. So I would recommend that maybe we, you know, go back to the subcommittee or a new subcommittee, given that Councilmember Jakewith's off, but kind of look at pieces of what might go in there for the council to do, but recognize you're adding that to what's already there. So I would like us to sort of explore a couple of things. You know, just for the record, I think every time that I meet with the city manager, we talk about the joint meetings, and getting those started. But we have had a series of things getting Lori up and running and on board and stuff that just has moved those back. We've had one joint meeting that's been with Open Space and Park, but that was issue-based, and we wanted to have some that were just open for discussion. So we want to get that going with Planning Commission, and here we are looking at reappointments and appointments and new positions already. So we were supposed to have that. So we really are dependent, whatever you put in the council pocket we are dependent upon staff also. So you're adding to staff work when we do that, and I want us to be very cognizant of that. So the joint meetings can go under there. The issues in terms of council communications, people have come to us on several different occasions and ask, could there be like representatives that, you know, like are the point person for Pedro Point or Lindemar, that kind of thing. So we might want to consider something along those lines and how, you know, kind of going along with the neighborhood. Another piece of that is the emphasis on the website of putting together minutes with commissioners so that those get kind of connected for people, or committee members, so people know how to contact folks that are involved. But, you know, we're also doing things besides those joint community meetings that happen are very, very relevant. One of the best meetings that I was involved in was very issue-based and kind of almost impromptu, and that was, and very well attended, was at St. Peter's in the back of the valley, and Chief Saunders then put it together because there'd been a series of problems with some things happening in the neighborhoods and some crime and that sort of thing. And a lot of folks showed up, and it was very informative and very, very good meeting. We've had the same thing here in West Sharp Park. So some of those need to continue to happen, and it's harder to sort of strategize that. Last but not least, I think actually the Mayor's Walk kind of goes in that category because the whole focus of sort of informationally targeting areas that are about to have something happen or going to have something happen and making sure people are engaged in that and know about it, those things are outgoing. So we could kind of group those things in that area, but I want whoever or however we choose to do that, and we may want to agendize that a little bit separately. But I would encourage people to think that that adds a huge amount of staff time. And I want to stress yet again, most of those do not get televised. I appreciate what Chris Fogel said. We get very little reporting. I'm not going to even comment. I would love to, but I'm not going to comment on what gets reported, but I'm going to keep commenting that we need more accurate information out in the public eye and actual information. Anyway, so I think that you can have meetings, but people don't attend, they don't hear it, and it's a huge drain for staff. So I would use caution about how much. That's probably my biggest comment there. I want to have them, I like having them, and I like doing the face-to-face myself, but I do understand the limitations there as well. So with that,
I have a question.
Oh, I thought you wanted to make the motion.
I did want to make a motion, but I need a question. I didn't quite understand what the two of you said because of what I said. I don't understand where asking for the use of community forums on major issues is devoid of an agenda. I don't understand what just transpired there. Neither one of you explained that to me.
It just seemed to me like it was rather nebulous, okay? And I think, you know, major community issues, we do have meetings on. The climate change, I assume the council had some for Palmetto and that and everything. I attended the one at Pedro Point for the bridge closure. Okay, that we have had those meetings. It seemed to me that your comments, I'm not trying to pick on you, Sue, okay, but your comments were kind of nebulous and a lack of focus or form. And I just don't, I had to clarify that you can't really have a meeting of just like the five of us sitting here and just let people come and talk, because one, we couldn't respond because it's not on an agenda. So right, that's where I was coming from.
When I use the term...
Let me just finish one thing. I would also like to Can I finish, please?
Yes, you can finish.
Okay.
I just want to not go back and forth.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to mention is one thing that we should do is, and I think this is a very viable and accurate issue for the people on Pedro Point, was Caltrans, one of them said, when did you have a public hearing? And Caltrans said 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I do think we as a city should try to monitor that and have something a little more frequent than every 6 years when they're going to be, you know, their front yard's basically going to be torn up.
Well, okay. I said, Councilmember Stone.
I appreciate everyone's comments, and I'm not really sure how to incorporate Councilmember Degree's request. I think it might be in the body of the plan here. So in the name of moving this forward, I'm just going to make a motion that we approve the attached communication plan and authorize the staff to move forward with this implementation.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
A second.
I was just going to second.
Okay. All right, any more discussion? Okay, please vote. And that passes 5-0, and I thank you so very much, everybody. Great. I think that this is a working plan, so we can keep working on some of those feedback issues. That brings us to our last item for this evening, and that item is our mid-year budget report and resolution amending the FY 2013-2014 budget. Staff report, please. I just stole yours.
While staff is helping set up my PowerPoint presentation, I just want to add my thanks to the staff for doing such a fabulous job. We really have great talent here. Yeah. And I'm having a lot of fun encouraging them to demonstrate it, and I think you're going to see some really amazing things in the future as well.
Yes.
So good evening, Mayor and City Council. I am City Manager Lori Tinfo. With me is Stephen Carmichael, our Interim Administrative Services Director, and we have a relatively short report for you tonight on the mid-year 2013-14 budget update. Thank you, Joe. So a little background, as Council knows, in June of last year, you adopted the 2013-14 budget, and it included a general fund with revenue projections of about $27.1 million and expense projections of about $26.8 million. Tonight's update includes financial performance through the end of December, so the first 6 months of the budget cycle, and other information that we've been able to gather more recently. So the recommended adjustments that we're putting forward to you there in your staff report are for revenues, to increase them by just over $750,000. Sounds like a lot of money, but it's basically 2.8% of an increase in revenues. And there are 4 categories, which I've highlighted there, and I'll go into those in a couple of minutes in more detail. For expenses, we're also recommending increasing those by $528,000. Again, sounds like a large number, but only 2% of our expenditure budget in terms of an increase. And again, just because of coincidence, 4 categories are being recommended to have changes made to them. So I put this up there not so much because I think you can really read it. It's part of the attachment that's in your staff report, and that those in the audience or they have the report at home can see. This is just the revenue portion of the attachment. I put it up here just so that you could see the categories that we're recommending be adjusted and to highlight those. So in property tax, we're recommending an adjustment of about $341,000. That is primarily because we've received additional money in the form of excess ERAF, and that's Educational Relief Augmentation Fund. It's funds that come to cities from the county because having to do with school allocations. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of minutes, but it's basically due to that. We had budgeted $1.3 million, we're getting about $1.6 million. For intergovernmental, that $189,000, that too is an amount that we're getting from the state in excess of what we'd budgeted. It's the motor vehicle license in lieu fee, another sort of state funding mechanism, but again, it's coming in higher than we budgeted, so we're recommending that we increase that allocation. For recreation fees, that $126,000, that's basically a combination of different grants that staff has received, been successful in receiving for the city to use for recreation programs, primarily childcare, but others as well. And then other revenues, that $95,000 is an amalgamation of the recycling funds that came in that Councilmember Stone announced last council meeting from Recology. It's also our beach parking fees are up a little bit, so we're recommending increasing the beach parking funds, et cetera. So it's an amalgamation of several things going to that $95,000. And there you can see the total at the bottom, the $751,380 increase that we're recommending, and also how it then affects the bottom line. This is the same thing, but on the expense side of things. So salary and benefits, we're recommending a $200,000 increase in those costs, primarily from 2 retirements. We paid out vacation and other leaves that they had accrued from their time here. Those were not budgeted because we didn't allow for those in the budget. We didn't know about them. And so that $200,000 is to cover those costs. I apologize for that .041. It should say $41,000. And that's for department expense. And let me just refresh my memory. I'll give you an example of what that. Oh, that's also for PB&R. That's for costs associated with programs that they're going to be able to offer since they have those grant monies. Other services and charges, the $225,000, that has to do with legal costs that are coming in higher than we're budgeted. Also some additional finance staffing that we've had to bring in this year due to a number of different issues. And also some other contracts that were negotiated and were not included in the budget. The intergovernmental amount there, the $62,000, that was actually the election costs associated with Measure V. Those were not in the budget as we discovered. So we need to add this as an expense so that we can cover it. And that produces that bottom line there, $528,200 that we're recommending expense budget be increased. And again, you can see the bottom line in terms of how it affects the total. So in conclusion, I want to bring to your attention that the good news is that the budget remains balanced, but the not so good news is that it's pretty precarious. All of the revenues are stable or are increasing, but so were the expenses. We are very reliant on that excess ERAF money that I highlighted a few minutes ago, and starting in 2011, the county had begun telling cities that we should wean ourselves off of that money because it was increasingly unpredictable and eventually it was going to be going away. And they had recommended back then that cities start treating it as one-time revenue to be used for one-time expenses. Now, we've not done that here. We have reduced the amounts in the budget over time, but we still are very, very reliant on it. And so that's part of what makes the budget balancing so precarious. And you will hear more about that when I bring forward the budget to you next month. So the year end, after all of these changes, the year-end balance that we expect, so total revenues over total expenses for the single year, we expect to still end up with $546,000 to the good. Now again, that sounds like a big number, but it's only 2% of our budget. So what that says is that we're doing a really good job of estimating things very, very close to the bone. And there's not a lot of wiggle room for contingencies. So it is good news, but it's offered with some caveats, as you can see. So with that, Stephen or I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Does that, I'm going to ask a couple of things. That's it. That's the balance in the checkbook with no reserve.
For this year, not for what's accumulated in previous years, just for this year.
Okay, have we accumulated something?
We have. I don't have a updated balance for you this time. I don't have
Because
it ready.
we did pass a policy on trying to build that reserve.
Yes.
And I know that as costs continue to increase, and they do, I mean, people talk about costs increasing for them, they increase for the city. Gas goes up, it goes up for us too. So is that, are we, well, you're going to get more into that when we get into the budget, is what you're telling me. Okay,
Exactly.
I'm going to leave it at that. Councilmember Stone, questions? I have
Thank
no
you.
cards on this, by the way.
Okay. I saw that lawsuit, the number that includes legal expenses. It
Yes.
seemed like a pretty high number. What is driving that up?
It's about $100,000 out of that total, and maybe if city attorney would like to weigh in on that, it's basically we've just had a number of things come through that have increased the budget that's necessary to cover those costs, and I'll let her highlight specifics.
Yeah, I would think the majority of the costs have gone to the 2 lawsuits that we are currently defending, challenging both the Caltrans EIR certification and also a direct lawsuit against the city related to our assistance towards the Highway 1 widening project. That one lawsuit has been successfully terminated. We were successful in that, but that one lawsuit incurred approximately $50,000 to $60,000 in fees to defend that. That's now concluded, but we are still defending the Highway 1 challenge to the certification of the EIR on the Highway 1 widening, I'm sorry. And that, to date, the fees for that litigation are approximately $20,000, but we are still in the preliminary proceedings. The majority of the costs are still yet to come.
Wow, okay. And then thank you very much. And I wanted to ask you also about beach parking, because I know that's something that we haven't, or I guess we haven't been a full year on yet. How's that going, and is it meeting expectations financially?
It is meeting expectations, and in fact, we expect it to be a little bit higher than we had budgeted. We had budgeted about, I think, $302,000. We think it's going to be closer to $330,000. So part of that number that I mentioned is a $29,000 increase in that category because we're expecting things to come in a little bit better than what we thought. That's really good news.
And is that an increase in the income projection, or are expenses trending about as expected? How are expenses doing, I guess?
Yeah, it's a revenue increase, and expenses are trending in the way that we thought that they would. So it's good news.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
So I know you commented on this briefly in the PowerPoint in regards to ERAF funding, that it's estimated that it's going to stop in the next couple of years. Do we have any more predictions in terms of for how long we are? That's a very significant amount of money, some 1.6 million. Do we have any ideas about how long we can anticipate that kind of income?
Well, I've been told, but not in an official document or anything, but I've been told to expect it to go away in 2016-17.
Yep, 2 years.
So it really points to the importance of not using one-time funds on ongoing expenditures. So
exactly.
I really appreciate the fact that we're looking at taking that out of our ongoing revenues. And then, did I have anything else? I think you asked everything else. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Degree.
What intergovernmental went up? What is that?
It's motor vehicle in lieu fee. So it has to do with the state swap of if I can get this right, sales tax, or property tax for sales tax, or sales tax for property tax, but it's shown in a special category. It was done back in 2004, and so we continue to track it, and it's coming in, as I mentioned, higher than our budget at $189,000 higher.
Thank you.
Councilman O'Neill.
This is just more a request for, and kind of taking off of what Mayor Nyhart said. When we start the discussions of the budget, I would like to see a breakdown of the special funds and what the balances are, the capital improvement, the in lieu parking fees. For Rockaway, I think that's the only place where we have in lieu, and all those special funds that a city has, just to get an idea of what those, what the balances are on that.
Absolutely, and the reason why we're not bringing them to you tonight is because we're not recommending any changes, but absolutely, that's an important part of the total budget.
Okay, thank you.
I have no cards on this. Anybody, any public want to speak on the issue? Okay, seeing no one, I do want to make a few comments. One is I'm impressed so far because we kind of had, but I want to make sure that you feel confident that the budget assumptions are present, that you've got everything rectified in a way that actually makes sense, because it was a bit disheartening to hear certain things were not included in the budget. So are you feeling going forward that you're in better shape than?
I can't say that I am sure we're not going to find any more surprises. Perhaps we will.
Okay.
I will also say
fair.
that we've done a lot of talking about how we think that the budget should be restructured so that it makes more sense. So we may or may not be able to do that this next budget year. It might take another year, but whatever changes we can make to make it easier to understand and clearer to follow, you'll see those. And we will make the assumptions clear so that the council and the community knows what's in the budget. I can offer you that assurance.
Great. The other thing I wanted to make sure I heard correctly, Michelle, this is to you. 85,000 is what I'm adding up?
To date, with the two lawsuits, yes. There are additional
You're
lawsuits
telling me we haven't gotten to the meat of it yet?
For the one lawsuit, we have concluded one of the lawsuits, which was the majority of the costs, which was between $50,000 to $60,000. And that suit is concluded. We currently have outstanding, I think, $20,000 to $25,000 on the one lawsuit challenging the certification of the EIR, and that lawsuit, we have not gotten to the meat of it, the briefing and the hearing.
So we're talking 85,000?
To date.
Okay, 65,000, 85,000. Yeah.
About 80 to 85,000 to date that we've spent on the two lawsuits.
All right, just making a point. All right. Councilmember Stone.
I just want to say I really like the format of your presentation. It's very easy to understand and follow, and I know that's something that we've all wanted, and I really appreciate this format. I really also appreciate your comments about ERAF. We had the very heated discussion at our last budget about ERAF and it being one-time money, and in my mind at least, and I'm happy that you mentioned that, because it's not something that we can count on, and so therefore we need to budget accordingly. So I'm happy that we'll be discussing that in the next budget cycle. So thank you. I'm happy to make a motion anytime if there's no more comments.
Did you want to make a comment?
No.
Okay.
Can I make a motion?
Okay, go ahead.
You guys ready? Okay, I move to adopt the resolution approving the revised, I want to say balanced budget, but I won't, revised budget for fiscal year 2013-14, and accept the adjustments, including included as part of the mid-year budget update for the 2013-14 operating budget.
Councilwoman DeGreen.
Second.
Okay. No further comments, please vote. And that passes 5-0. And before, you are welcome, and thank you. Before we close tonight, I just was asked, I don't know how many of you remember Michael Randolph, who was the former Community Development and Economic Services Department Director. You probably do. Michelle, you're looking at me like you do, but he was the department director in the late 80s, early 90s, so it's right when you were here. He has passed away, and I have been asked to close the meeting in memory. Michael Randolph. Okay. Thank you very much.